You obviously know that AI has had a massive impact on the stock market, but what about Trading212 and other investment apps? Let's talk about it. AI has obviously been a massive thing in the app space. If you use loads of different apps, you see AI used, for example, to put furniture in your room or to give you recommendations for certain things. But one place I've not seen it yet used is in trading apps. Obviously, you can buy AI stocks and things like that, but the use of AI in trading has come slowly, which I think has been due to probably the user base of sort of Trading212 and other apps being a little bit skeptical of AI, and also the fact that the apps themselves don't want AI to be construed as investment advice. Obviously, because we're still in the nascent stages of AI, even though it's progressed a lot. But Trading212 in its latest update has introduced a specific AI feature, which is really interesting, and that's what this video will be about today. This has come as part of a wider sort of visual change to overhaul to the app. It's not vast, but they've changed the way that 52-week lows and highs are shown and things like that, and the way that sector allocations and things are shown. Which I'll put some things up on screen. But what we're really interested in is the AI feature specifically. In Trading212, this is shown as AI analysis. That's what it's labeled as, and what it is basically a commentary for specific stocks, ETFs, etc. I can see that it's available on a decent amount of the larger stocks. In the ETF space, the only thing I can see that it's available for is VUSA, VUSA, which is the Vanguard SP 500 tracker. That's the only ETF I can see, but I can see it used a lot more for stocks. And you can access this in the app on when you click on a stock, so it gives you your normal charts, so you can see all the price movements. Gives, for example, your investment if you have one. Then it's AI analysis. Then it's the feed. Then related pies. I'm looking at VUSA right now, and then it gives you your alerts, your stats, analyze performance. Explore further. They've put earn interest and these other share transfer, share lending things here, and then the fund allocation at the bottom. So I do think with Trading212 generally, it's getting pretty cluttered. There is a lot in this single page, and I think for beginners it's starting to get to the point where it's probably a little bit overwhelming going through all this data, especially because we're not able to disable bits of this that we don't want to see. For example, the earn interest for the share lending, which they'll be constantly rammed down your throats every single time we click on any stock or ETF. But I digress. We want to look at the AI analysis. So if we look at the USA, what this is doing, and you can read or listen to it, and it's actually quite a lengthy bit of text. And in this example, it says that it's from 2 hours ago. I don't know exactly how frequently it does refresh, but obviously it's AI generated, so it's to be taken with a bit of pinch of salt, or a vast pinch of salt. And this is what we sort of want to look at and discuss. So it says, so it's split into market trends, sentiment, fundamentals, conclusion, and for VUSA, which I think is a really good example because it's a massive, it's tracking SP 500. I think most investors are pretty familiar with the constituent parts of it and how it operates, and it's a good one to look at. It says the Vanguard SP 500 DIST has seen noticeable fluctuations over the past month. It's a mix of sharp climbs and pullbacks, affecting a period of heightened volatility, which I guess is true. Sort of Trump. It depends. You're saying past month. If we actually have a look at the past month, we're up and down 6%. It is relatively volatile, but I would lean on the side that I agree with what it's saying. Technical trends show the price hovering near the middle of its recent range. Then it says moving averages momentum signals have softened recently, suggesting a cooling off from earlier positive runs. Sort of true, even though I'd argue 6% in a month is the best month that the SP 500 has had for a long time. Maybe that isn't true. And it says volatility at above average recent movement indicates potential for continued swings in price action. Some of this is quite vague. It's quite hard really to give this a whole lot of credit because, when it says above average recent movement, I don't know what that's comparing it to. I assume to itself, but it doesn't give any indication. Doesn't really give any time periods. And it also, and this is I think the thing with this use of AI, it doesn't give any drivers or any wider commentary. All it's doing is basically saying what you can see in the chart. So I think the market trends, not overly important. It's just repeating what you can see from a really, really basic viewpoint of being able to understand peaks and troughs. There's nothing that this market trends is doing is more complicated than that. But let's see if that changes. So looking at sentiment, it says there is positive chatter on social platforms with investors referring to the ETF as a reliable long-term choice and expressing confidence in its enduring appeal. That is true, though I do worry a little bit for the use of this in this context, because what that is doing is basically, in a way, recommending the S&P 500, which is fine, I guess. That's not necessarily inherently wrong, though I think for an AI in this context, it's better if it just focuses on drivers and performance rather than telling people that it's positive sentiment. Because what's on Trading212, which is where I assume it's putting that data from, is different potentially to what people could be saying on eToro or any other platform or any other forum or Reddit, for example, if you want to go down that route. So we don't know where this is pulling data from, and that is a slightly worrying thing. But let's continue. So fundamentals is the next thing. It says the ETF remains fundamentally strong with healthy diversification and moderate sensitivity to broad market moves. Some of the tariffs have shown that that necessarily isn't true. It's obviously a US domiciled fund. It is it is reactive to the news in the US. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. So will supply consistent returns and attractive yield for income focused investors, which I think is true. If you look over the long run, sort of 8-9% average, it does fluctuate. And I assume in that fundamentals in Trading212, where an ETF or a stock has 5 or 10 years of data, that is filtering into this. But I do think with Trading212, and I think we'll see this as this rolls out and probably expands, because I think they'll lean into this feature, is for things that have been recently put on the platform, or things that have been on there a year or two, which has limited data for what it's going to tell you, given that there's not as much data to pull from. VUSA is up there with probably NVDA, Apple, as some of the most talked about knowledge dense stocks on the platform. So, we'll see. And in conclusion, it says overall, the Vanguard SP 500 DIS is exhibiting signs of stabilization after a dynamic month. Very general terminology, both technical and sentiment indicators suggest cautious optimism. Investors may find it resilient in holding in turbulent markets, benefiting from robust fundamentals, even as technical signage urge attention to possible future volatility, which I guess is fine, though I think the AI analysis, I think, really is a beginner-focused feature, but that conclusion is very jargon-heavy, which I do think, is this really serving its intended purpose? But obviously, this is a new feature. It will grow over time. I don't have any vast issue with what it's doing at the moment. And at the bottom, they have a was this helpful, yes or no. So obviously, they know that this isn't the finished article and that there may be cases where it says things that are potentially completely wrong. We're still in the early stages. But let's have a look at another stock. So I've pulled up Nvidia, another massive, one of the most, jostling in the big six, one of the most expensive, most valuable companies in the world. And this has more text. Maybe you'd expect that given that it's about a specific company, but it just says similar sort of things. Experienced a period of strong upward momentum with prices climbing steadily over the past month. Trading has returned choppy of late. Heights of volatility momentum indicates just the stock has recently approached overbought territory and is now stabilizing, while trend following signals show according price. Good that it does this, though I think for beginning investors, overbought signals doesn't explain them. It's just churning out words that people may not know or may, necessarily may not interpret correctly and think, I need to sell it because it's saying this, which I think is the worrying thing with this. It just says recent trading activity demonstrates both rapid recoveries after dips and short bursts profit taking. So this is suggesting an active and tactical trading environment around Nvidia shares. So this is getting a little bit more into the detail than what it was for the S&P 500 for VUSA. So sentiment, it just says recent social commentaries shows a focus on the risks stemming from geopolitical tensions in Asia, discussing about trading strategies, with users alternating between quick trades and long-term holding approaches. So this is giving a lot more detail on some of the drivers, which the VUSA commentary didn't. It just stated things that have happened. This is going a step below in terms of detail. Very interesting, though. It remains to be seen how applicable this is, how accurate this is across a range of different stocks. But I would say is if you have the app, go and read a few of them and just see what they say. I think it'd be very interesting to know to see what this AI is actually doing and what it's saying, whether it aligns with what you think about the market. Because obviously, this isn't investing advice. Do your own research, and this is sort of what Trading212 is trying to sort of duplicate in a way. So fundamentals, it says it remains fundamentally strong with robust profitability and rapid annual returns, which it has financial statement data, it has P&L cash flow, statement of financial position, so it can give some commentary on that. But current valuations on the higher end compared to broader markets, signaling growth expectations are already reflected in the share price. Again, it's interesting, and this is going into quite a bit of detail and giving some actually quite technical analysis, a lot more than what VUSA was. And then it just says, conclusion overall, it displays resilience and appeal for short-term investors and long-term, need for caution amid elevated volatility and potential external risks, which it doesn't name. Investors may consider waiting for clearer signs of support or return strong momentum before initiating new positions, while remaining mindful of broader economic and geopolitical uncertainty. So, yeah, it is definitely an interesting feature. Take it with a grain of salt, but it's interesting that they are putting this into the app. This is the first time I've seen it used in this context. I don't use a vast array of trading apps, but this is the first time I've seen it, and I think this is something that if they execute it right and that people like, they'll expand on, and I'm sure it's going to be seen in pretty much every platform. But if you have any questions or have any feedback or potential videos you want, put them in the comments below. Please like and comment, of course. I really appreciate all the support. It's been Harry from HDL Finance, and I'll see you next time.